Good morning, everybody. Let me welcome you to this Claire AQuA session. AQuA stands for All Questions Answered. It's an event co-organized by Claire and the AI Belgium's European AI Week 2023. My name is Hans de Kank. I'm chair of Claire Brussels and also co-directing FARI, the AI for the Common Good Institute. For those of you who are joining AQuA for the first time, let me first give you some brief introduction of what it is. The Claire AQuA, or All Questions Answered, is actually inspired by Turing Award winner Donald E. Knuth's All Question Answered lecture. Claire AQuA events are relaxed, so you can chill down. It's a 1 hour or even less online event that brings together a small group of analysts, experts to discuss current hot topics in AI and even beyond, and answer questions from the community. So that's what we are going to do today. We will focus on the topic of how AI is affecting our mental health. It's a topic which is currently highly debated on all levels and that you might have some pending questions about. So we will discuss anything and everything from addictive AI algorithms to the effect of realistic AI filters to body dysmorphia, alleged emotional manipulation of generative AI tools like Bing and ChatGPT, and the impacts of presence of AI on social behaviors, among many others. And that's what is why we are here today, to provide a platform for your questions, the audience, the community, which will be answered by our panelists. And I'm joined by 4 speakers today. First of all, I would like to introduce Elias Fernandos Domingos, Nathalie van Raamdonk, Hannelea Dijkast, as well as my friend and colleague Carl Mork, also from the FARI Institute. The 4 of you, I will let you introduce yourself in a bit and how this works. I will first explain that we have the 4 experts here. We will have a live Q&A tool on Zoom for those of you who are joining us via Zoom, but we also have the YouTube chat platform, of which I know that there are many of you also following us on YouTube. So please drop all your questions using one of these tools, and then we will try to answer them as much as possible with the panel. Now, before we start with the panel, I would like to ask our 4 panelists to please introduce yourself. But we will do this with a little bit of a twist to make it also more fun for our audience online. I will show you a very short video related to the topic of today, and I want you to give a 2-sentence reaction to that video, personal reaction, and then followed by your name, your expertise, and then your affiliation. And I hope this will trigger some questions from our audience as well. So here we go with the video.
There is a substantial body of research showing a strong association between smartphone addiction, shrinkage of the brain's grey matter, and digital dementia, an umbrella term for the onset of anxiety and depression and the deterioration of memory, attention span, self-esteem and impulse control, the last of which increases addiction. Indeed, many habitual TikTokers can already be found complaining on websites like Reddit about their loss of mental ability, a phenomenon that's come to be known as TikTok brain. Wow. If the signs are becoming apparent already, imagine what TikTok addiction will have done to a new developing brains a generation from now. This should prompt consideration of its potential use as a new kind of weapon, one that seeks to neutralize enemies, not by inflicting pain and terror, but by inflicting pleasure.
Yeah. So maybe, Hannelea, could you go first?
Sure thing. That's a heavy topic right there. Super video. Thank you so much. My name is Hannelea Dijkast. I am a systemic coach, mindfulness trainer, lecturer, and holistic organizational designer. And I'm thrilled to be here today. Thank you for having me. So my initial impulse, my pulse just got beat up while watching this because it's insane. So if you're not paying for something, your product, and this is exactly the result of it, what he's discussing there. So I'm really curious how what questions are coming our way today and how we can discuss this topic. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Elias?
Yes, definitely food for thought and a bit concerning. I'm not so sure about the substantial body of research, but I'm definitely not an expert on this. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Wellbeing, Université Libre de Bruxelles, working at the intersection of AI, game theory, and experimental economics. I don't think I'm going to be the expert on mental health for sure, but I hope I can contribute a bit.
Okay, thanks. Carl?
Yes, indeed, it's a lot of things to unpack related to pseudoscience, related to also false information in terms of mental health. I think that it's also the sign that mental health is a growing topic in society. So if I had to see maybe one positive thing here is maybe that people try to think about it, try to see what's the relationship between technologies and mental health, if that's a bit of a stretch. So my name is Karl Merck. I'm a researcher in psychology, specialized in the use of AI and data in mental health. Specifically, I've worked on suicide prevention, depression, online gambling dependencies, so I'm happy to be here today.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for your interesting introductions. I just want to remind everyone that we're streaming this AQuA session. It is aimed to be interactive with you, the audience. So please join the discussion, post your questions directly into the live chat on YouTube or Zoom, and then we will try to keep the format very swift. And we will try also to ask our panelists to have no more than 2 minutes per answer, so that we can keep an active and interactive flow. Let's without further ado, continue and let's listen or go for the first question, maybe for the panelists. Maybe a very generic question to start with, and if you don't mind, Hanna-Lea, I will start with you. What are some of the ways that AI algorithms can impact our mental health? It's a very generic question, I know, but maybe it's a good starter just to indeed have a list of the ways that we think that AI algorithms can impact our mental health in general.
Mm-hmm. Good one to start, broad one. Yeah, I mean, if we look at algorithms in AI, it's used everywhere. Like everywhere where we interact on social media and digitally, AI is used in most cases. So anywhere on social media platforms, like purchase platforms like Amazon, just to name one big one right there, or Instagram, like all those social interaction tools that or the youth specifically, but everyone mostly uses. So the rewarding system is one aspect here, like the dopamine rush that comes with it, the way we want to see ourselves depicted, or we want to actually get social recognition. Like there's a lot of layers to it. Then the facial recognition aspect is quite something, like how we actually also like do our social comparison, and also we're augmented. There's several filters that can be applied, that we can skim our face or chop our face up and things like that. So really not realistic to the actual human being. And then also the way we're recommended things online. So how we're actually seeing products or product placements within the digital world, and how we're actually triggered to buy things, to interact with things, to consume. So it's really, really broad, but it goes into these three facets of rewarding, the social comparison aspect, and really the recommendation system.
Okay, thank you. Carl, maybe your first reaction on this very general question?
Could you repeat the question if that's possible?
Yeah, so what are some of the ways that the AI algorithms can impact our mental health? There are different ways,
yeah,
of course, can see, but according to you, what are the major ones to be identified?
I think what research has shown in the past years and even decades is that indeed technologies, and specifically here AI and data, can of course impact negatively mental health by reinforcing systems or patterns that tend to want to make some consumers / users more dependent on a product. This is, of course, what has been shown again and again for social media specifically. But I think an aspect that is also interesting to me is that almost from the early ages of AI, it was shown that people can form meaningful relationship from their subjective point of view with some systems, the chatbots, some visual interface that were interacting with them, with robots. And so it is also possible that in some very controlled, supervised by professional situations, it is possible that also humans can benefit from tools that are well crafted for them with a meaningful purpose that has been also carefully chosen. So I think the conditions under which AI, for instance, specifically can be have a positive impact maybe requires more efforts, more work. And I think this is also what recent events have tended to show us. It is a difficult path. It is a complicated one, but it can also bring positive outcomes on people's mental health.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe Elias, if you think there are some topics maybe not yet mentioned in this general question, introductory question.
Yeah, I think Hannah and Carl mentioned most things. I would say perhaps that in terms of social networks, as Carl said, their aim is to keep people as engaged with it as possible. And they do this in several ways, but one of the ways is by recommending us links. So we no longer connect with people just based on our own preferences, but we have an algorithm that recommending us who we should connect to. And this can actually create very uniform and links in a network, loops, in which you can actually end up looping up information. And this creates polarization. You're always seeing the same things. And it can create some kind of parallel reality as well. It reinforces your personal opinions or some extreme opinions, and that can be a bit dangerous as well.
Well, thank you for your answer, Elias, because I think it's a nice bridge to our fourth speaker, Nathalie van Raamboek. Thanks for joining us, Nathalie. And maybe to actually discuss this a bit further, on how that AI can affect humans' behavior and specifically maybe social interaction. I think it's a field of expertise and research that you're looking into. For example, self-driving cars, but also more specifically, I think AI chatbots at home or service robots. Can they indeed affect, like Elias says, our human behavior, but more specifically our social interaction? And what are already your findings on this?
Hi, Hans, and sorry for being a bit late. Jackie invited me yesterday, and I had a lot to say about this. At the same time, there's just so much still unknown about it. And I think Elias was already mentioning the whole polarization element, and just the way that algorithms, I think the way that AI has kind of given us the idea that we can totally personalize our social ecosystems, at the same time that we still don't really know how our agency actually plays a role in it. Like, so many people are just speculating, like, oh, if I do this or this, then this is how I'm gonna get fed new content. And that there's just something really weird Pavlovian about it, if you think about it, because it remains such a black box that we're just kind of pushing all these buttons and thinking, oh, if I see this on TikTok all the time, people saying, oh, I'm just not going to mention the word sex because that's how I get like de-amplified. Well, research has found no such thing, that this is not how the algorithm actually works. So people kind of avoid self-censor themselves just because they think this is how they need to engage with the AI to keep getting the attention, to keep having their followers just see their content. So I think this is one way. It's not just impacting our mental health, it's really just impacting how we think we should be engaging with our followers, and just having this whole influence on our actual agency.
Well, maybe related to that, I think indeed the let's say the self-consciousness and your how that you see yourself. I think also on the aspect of face tracking, facial recognition, facial augmentation by using AI. So a lot of these image-based apps, they actually have created questionable filters, I would say, including ones that are designed to make user appearance, for example, more slender. What do you think? And I will reach to Hanalea again. What are your thoughts about this easy access AI feature? How do you think that they contribute to mental issues and social behaviors, Hanalea?
Absolutely. Yes, they do. They form our personality, the way we perceive ourselves, that we're seen to the external world. It creates like a parallel world digitally to the real world. And it also does diminish the way we're seeing ourselves and our self-esteem or self-worth. So it really has a critical impact on the way we depict ourselves and the way we're seeing ourselves. So yeah, critical aspects here.
Yeah. And maybe as a consequence to that, and that's maybe a question for Carl, or can users protect themselves from these these aspects?
Yeah, I think the question that always comes to mind for me is also at the heart of any AI system is also data. It seems that even with years of scandals, years of unprotected data sets, malpractices of private companies venturing into the field of mental health, thinking it's another potential market without necessarily having the right expertise to back it up. For me, it's also the way data has been completely misused. And so as a private citizen, it seems that we are, from the government perspective, and in Europe, we are, I think, a bit sheltered and in a good way, but it's still, there is so much left to do. As a private citizen, it's a bit overwhelming. It is hard to not use some of the platforms that have been named or that have been used. So it seems that there is still a long way to go to protect the data. And I will finish also by saying that it seems that what we in research considered health information has been extended over the years. And so when you would see a doctor, a psychologist, and confide or provide some information, this would be then sensitive health information. But now the way you use your social media app, at what time, under which frequency, in which location, can also become health-related information. And so it seems that as a private citizen, the scope has broadened in terms of what information you're providing that could be used in terms of health-related topics. And so it seems that, I have a pretty pessimistic, sorry, Hans, answer to that. It seems that there is not much to do except that carefully choosing, specifically if you have children, the apps, the time, but just good common sense also practices, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's a drop in the ocean.
Yes, I can imagine. Maybe a question for Elias, as given your background as an AI expert, but also looking into behavioral economics. Everything, and a lot of discussion, of course, with ChatGPT nowadays is about generative AI or conversational AI. And it is said that in the current advancements in that domain, that automated systems really can manipulate users into thinking that they're really drawn into a casual dialogue with such an conversational AI system. But actually, at the end of the day, it is actually intended to skillfully pursue actually a target influence behavior. I could imagine that in your research that you have some insights on that and how that works for the good, but maybe also for the bad. Can you tell a bit more about that? Are your insights on that?
Yes, in terms of ChatGPT, it is in fact just a text predicting tool. It's nothing more. Just people tend to take it as more than what it is, and it generates very realistic text that tends to not disagree with what you're saying, which can also be quite dangerous. It's very good at making you think that something is real. You can ask him in an affirmative way a question that is wrong, and it will try to convince you that is right. But in terms of recommender systems in YouTube and other social media, they do try to keep you and manipulates you. Perhaps that's not the intention of the programmers, but in terms of AI and the systems that use reinforcement learning and implementing intention on them or the goals of the programming, the programming is very difficult. That there is a difficult mapping between a reward scheme that is used to train these algorithms and what is the real goal that people try to attain. And so the AI can actually learn policies that were very unexpected. And I remember, I take this with a grain of salt because it's been a while that I read this work. And remember, there was a work on YouTube that basically was showing that the way it happens is you're showing people recommendations of videos that are very close, and from time to time you add some small new type of recommendation, like a mutation to help people get to new content. If you click on it, you suddenly start getting a lot of new recommendations of this new system, and you move to something new. So you're never bored. There's always something that keeps you there. And I think that is definitely a strong manipulation, in particular in terms of the type of information that you're getting, because information determines behavior, determines opinions, and the way the systems are designed also affect a lot of our choices daily in particular. And it's not only YouTube, but there's other situations in life in which we're giving complete control to AI. For example, in terms of Google Maps, I don't know if anybody remembers a time in which we would choose by ourselves how to get somewhere, and we would get lost. We stop at a bar, we'd find a new place. Now Google Maps determines that. I don't even think about it. I completely delegated this decision to Google Maps, and perhaps at some point, or maybe it's already in place, Google can decide which route to send people based on whether companies have decided that people should go through this area, or just to try. I think they're already doing that to try to avoid congestion, but it's quite a strong manipulation that we are completely oblivious to. And I think that's quite concerning. There's not that much research still done on the ways we are nudged by AI. Now we are receiving a lot of information, but our brain is still using heuristics that we learned many, many years or hundreds of thousands of years ago in a situation in which the amount of information was much, much smaller. And this can be a problem. It can be beneficial as well in some cases.
Okay, thank you, Elias. Of course, we cannot deny the things that are happening around us, and specifically in the past few days, there was an unfortunate incident with a Belgian citizen that had committed suicide after drawn into a conversation with an AI chatbot. And on that specific matter, I wanted to ask Nathalie, if you think that chatbots and generative AI, maybe in general, are they really capable of emotionally manipulating users on purpose? And if so, what are some of the ethical concerns around this issue?
So on the question whether able, I'm not a psychologist, so I think I'll leave that question probably to Carl or Hannah. But I think one thing that we should also really talk about is the people who create these systems and the biases that they put in there. I have kind of been averse to using ChatGPT just because of the arms race. I kind of didn't want to contribute to it. But I did use it a few weeks ago because my colleagues kept saying, oh, it's so useful for research. So I thought, okay, let's see what this baby can do. And I was kind of unaware of the conversation around the whole, references. It kind of lies about it. So I asked it for a question and it gave me like 4 really good references that I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like this would really make my life a lot easier. And then I couldn't find them online. And the point I'm getting to is, I found out that, okay, it hallucinates these references. So I asked the chatbot, like, did you hallucinate these references? Because I'd been looking for it for half an hour and I started questioning my own abilities as a researcher. So I just wanted that confirmation of like, it's not me. And I asked the ChatGPT, did you hallucinate? And it actually replied, no, these are real academic references. You're just not able to find them because, in hidden words saying you're a bad researcher. So there was quite some gaslighting in the machine and just not admitting fault. And this is just a one tiny example of, I think, a certain culture that has a hard time admitting that they make mistakes and that some things are flawed. Now, there's probably plenty of examples where ChatGPT probably did admit saying like, oh, well, I'm just a machine. Like, but there are these kind of little examples that I find that kind of reflect a certain, the way the systems are built that are almost similar to how Facebook was moving fast and breaking things, without really thinking of the consequences of how it affects us on a social, emotional, psychological, collective level. So I'm quite wary of what we're still going to see in terms of the impact, like students who probably don't have the reflection that I had, like, okay, well, it's probably not me, who introduce these papers into their high school or university coursework because they think, well, the machine probably knows better than me. And then their teacher gets really angry, like, how could you be so stupid to trust an AI? So I think this might cause quite some distress for some people who, might think, oh, well, of course, all these people who developed this brilliant technology are smarter than me, so they must be smart enough to know not to let a machine just completely make up references to sources. So this is just one example that I personally encountered that I thought, well, I felt personally affected by it. I was really annoyed. My colleague was like, why are you getting so angry about a machine gaslighting you? But yeah, it's the first time that I was like, I'm legitimately annoyed by this machine.
Analea, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we have to keep in mind there's no real competence behind it. It is all sourced from sources somewhere, from databases, from examples that it's pulling from, right? And there's no real empathy that an AI can create, and no real emotions. So it is really something we have to bear in mind when looking at these systems and understanding them or interacting with them. And I think awareness is a really, really big aspect here, like educating people about it, right? Educating that it's not capable of those emotional, inherently self-reactions, right, of the system. So yeah, not humanizing and personalizing the technology to something like a person, right, the AI, but actually an algorithm. It's a technology behind it that is still yeah, in a way implemented by humans, but of course it's still yeah, in development. Yeah, Carl, you were Hans, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe Carl.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think, but here I see also two issues. Is that in the case of Eliza, named after one of the first chatbots created, it was interesting to me that it's a maybe new technology, old problem. It's one of the sayings I like, but just because it has been pointed out for years now that a lot of these chatbots or companies can sometimes create tools that, yes, indeed, can then be used by people in mental health distress, that can be used with people with vulnerabilities of all sorts. And so there is also sometimes, I would say, a willful blind spot, meaning that it is complicated, but okay, we can, the world is large and there are many people, we cannot control everything. I think that's some of the logic that I've heard also. But yeah, there is an unawareness. Sometimes I don't think it's a bad intention, but that's what is mental health? How can it impact also the design of the systems that you're creating, and why you should be aware of it? Even if mental health is becoming bigger, also post-COVID, I think there is a sensation that people are more acutely aware that it is a real thing. What I also see, and that's something mental health professionals are not saints, I think there is also a misunderstanding of the technologies, a misunderstanding of how you design these technologies and how you can also collaborate with the engineers, computer scientists to better craft them. And I think I've seen it firsthand. It's something I try to work on by also developing ethical tools to try to help mental health professionals use AI, I think more with a bit more knowledge on the technical aspects. It is clear to me that there are not enough mental health professionals involved in the design of these systems. And I think it's because sometimes of ignorance, or sometimes also a lack of understanding of how they can contribute. So I think there are responsibilities shared here. And I think there is a lot of work still on educating future professionals to better understand and use these technologies. And on the other hand, it has been pointed out that there is a discrepancy between the fact that as mental health professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, for instance, you have very specific deontological guidelines that you have to respect. On the other hand, when you're a developer of let's say, a startup in Silicon Valley, just because for the sake of it, but you do not have to follow strict standards on every single aspect. And so you do have IEEE, ISO norms. So you do have standards, but as soon as it's a matter of mental health, sometimes you can see initiatives popping out that do not necessarily abide by the same standards. And I think this discrepancy is real for me. And Eliza is an example of that once more time.
Yeah. Because you are mentioning standardization, regulation is looming around the corner, then we, of course, quickly end up thinking about the European AI Act. Do you think, also as an AI researcher, Elias, that regulation and standardization, like Carl says, which of course is also related to application of AI, so an AI algorithm in itself is not right or wrong, but is that a first step to indeed create a framework for protection on mental health? Do you believe that as an AI researcher that regulation could help in that matter?
Well, I'm not a psychologist, so it's difficult for me to answer about mental health. But in terms of regulation, it is a difficult question, because from one side, we don't want to hinder research, and it's very hard to actually regulate something that we don't know in which direction it's going. And at the same time, it is important to put some stops or some mechanisms in place to prevent the widespread use with an economic interest of certain applications that have not been tested in a social context, and that can have a harmful impact. So I definitely don't know in which direction to go there. There is some research done by my PI, by Tom Leonards, on AI arms race, and in which situations we should put more or less regulation, but it's never clear how we can regulate these things and at what speed, because research goes much faster than politicians or regulation. So at some point, we also, from a regulation standpoint, we should start, instead of reacting, start thinking about in which direction this is going to go and already put in place things that may happen in the future, because otherwise it's always behind.
Okay, thanks. Maybe a question to Hannah-Leah. Do you believe that also mental health professionals can help patients and clients who have experienced a trauma related to social media use, such as cyberbullying or online harassment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a key is human connection, right? So we don't live in a virtual world, like we're actual humans, we're live here. So actually engaging with a person that is right next to you, right in front of you, that you can connect to and talk about these situations. And if we look at, for example, social media, use or abuse, we look at the same effect like substance abuse. It is addictive, and the way we treat, people are treated with these symptoms that are addiction-like. Like we cannot really classify them as such yet, but the way we treat them is pretty much the same as we treat addiction patients or clients. And the way you actually interact with them is really through focus, through creating new habits, to understanding the use of these technologies and the impact of these technologies on their mental health and their well-being, and to really help them drive their life and patterns, like have habits from a different perspective, and being responsibly about their decisions. But it's a really thin line. So so health professionals are definitely there to support you, to help you, like not just psychiatrists, but also coaches to guide the process. But on the other hand, you have these tools that help professionals to actually find better pathways, also make also resources available, resources in terms of time, because there's a huge gap in demand and availability of specialists. And I think one of the questions also is aiming at that.
Yeah. And Nathalie, because Hannah, thanks for your answer. Focused on treatment, on mainly on addiction, but I can imagine that also specifically on cyberbullying or online harassment, Nathalie, that you have done some research, and are there indeed recommendations that come out of this type of research on cyberbullying that can be actually transferred to mental health professionals to take into account specific aspects of cyberbullying and online harassment and on this trauma treatments?
That's a really difficult one, also because we haven't properly figured out how to really deal with online harassment, because the biggest impact online harassment really has is the scale. So it's not necessarily the single individuals that bully someone. Then you come down to like the general offline dynamic. But the problem with online harassment is the fact that you have many singular individuals kind of piling on to someone. So we call it network harassment as well. And so there's some lessons to be learned from that in how to learn about your ecosystem a bit better. But I don't really know how to apply those lessons to how AI can actually assist in that. I'm trying to think out loud here, because I hadn't really thought of that link that much. But what are you thinking, Hannah-Lee? I see you also like kind of nodding, like how can we take some lessons from that to the way AI
I mean, it's really the way that we make sure that these technologies are used responsibly, and that they're actually designed so they don't harm, but they actually promote well-being. So it's really this line, and until now, like a lot of harm has been caused, and certain reactions were changed, like companies actually changed their ways they interact, or you're actually getting different notifications when you're putting specific content up. So it is already in the development, but it obviously cannot stop it from happening. Like it will continue to happen. So it's really, again, I'm coming back to this awareness aspect, and the way that we are responsible for creating these technologies. And this is in a way also a call to really work together, psychiatrists, researchers, developers, to sit on one table and develop these tools, and not just from a single pointed perspective. And that's really also when you look at design practices, like it's key to come and have multi-perspective development of these tools.
Okay, thank you both for your answer, and I think that is also a bit of an appeal, I would say, to indeed have more people participating in the debate of the future of AI and AI research and innovation. And I think one of the questions from the audience was how can Claire actually have an influence on that? And I think that indeed one of the aims of the Claire network is precisely to actually in the specific different application domains where AI is indeed everywhere, that we indeed can bring AI experts together with domain experts. And it's not just about organizing AQuA sessions like we're doing right now, but it's mainly also to establish working groups, to indeed collaborate on research and innovation projects together, not only with academics, but also with practitioners in more, let's say, close to market projects, give indeed also communication and input on policymakers in the medical domain, for example, or the domain of well-being. Now, I've seen that also Giovanni Briganti from UMont and ULB has joined the panel, and very much welcome, Giovanni. And I'm going to immediately give you a question to jump in. And I think we now until now have mainly discussed about impact of AI on mental health, maybe from a, let's say, more negative or challenging point of view. But at the same time, and that's we also had a session on Monday on the advantages or the usage of AI in the health domain. And I think that also in the domain of mental health, there are also maybe ways that AI could help both patients and also medical experts. Do you know that there is already some examples on and efforts done to use AI to, for example, classify meditation or stratify mental patients for that matter?
Thank you, Hans, Dr. De Kank, for this invitation. I'm sorry to jump in late because I'm actually in between the European AI Week. As you may have known, I'm coordinating the health track, and so I just jumped off of the first event, and I'm about to jump in the third event that I'm will be presenting. But I really wanted to come in and to answer some questions, and this question is the right one to start. So yes, there are many initiatives that are bringing AI into psychiatry. And the main field is the study of complexity that I study myself, so we can investigate mental disorder in a better way and better understand what mental disorders are with the use of artificial intelligence and complex systems. Indeed, from a research and academic point of view, it is really streamlined the process to which from clinical research study into clinical application and business opportunities, AI is coming into the psychiatric field. To me, and just a small word on the challenge, then I will go to the positive things of AI in psychiatry, is that many applications are answering needs that nobody has in mental health. And that should be answered. So what I would propose as a solution is that everybody who is involved into building a business around mental health and artificial intelligence should go 1 week in a psychiatric hospital and see how care is delivered to patients, because that will change many of the viewpoints of what I see on LinkedIn. Things should seem very, very light and very, very bright on LinkedIn when we talk about mental health, but indeed they are not. There is a lack of care, there's a lack of availability, and there is a lack of manpower to ensure that patients are taken care of. So applications should focus on what is concrete and what is severe in mental health, at the same time as treating, of course, other topics in mental health. So the positive things, yes, there are models that can identify the right treatment pathway for a psychiatric patient based on given data, identify if a patient belongs to one or another phenotype of a mental disorder when treating a patient, identify personalized models of evolution of a given disease to predict what will be the impact of a variation in symptomics into the patient's mental state. And that is, of course, extremely important in psychiatry, as we want to predict severe cases and we want to predict hospitalizations and exclusion from society as a whole. So the problem is that I strive to see my patients once a month. But in the best cases, I can see them once every 2 months. And for a patient with serious mental illness or even a moderate mental illness, that is not enough. That is where, of course, AI and innovative solutions come in, because they can help me monitor the health of my patient where he is not at home, where he's not with me in the consultation, or where he's not hospitalized. So that is why there are many initiatives that are trying first to reproduce mental health digital twins into the the state of a solution. So we are building an entire horizon project on that, into building a digital twin for mental health disorders, severe problems. Second, we see the emergence of systems that perform, for instance, diagnostics or information technologies that can bring information to whether a patient is likely to become aggressive based on facial recognition. Of course, the ethics of that is debatable and should be worked through. What we see are the extreme cases. In sad news in the media, as we learned this week, but in how many cases did AI and did apps and did chatbots maybe help a person in need? That we will never know, because what we lack is clinical validation of the tools, and that I will never stop telling that we need urgently European wide plan for clinical validation of AI solutions that come into market that are treating people for their mental health. So yes, in short, one, AI is changing psychiatry for the better. Two, it helps us better understand the diseases, their complexity, how they work and how they present in patients, and identify the right treatment path for a patient. And third, everybody can join in the revolution, but it has to be done in the right way and targeting the right use cases. That would be my intervention.
Thank you, Giovanni. Okay, Carl, you can, of course, complement to that.
Yes, I think I can only concur with the lack of clinical validation. I can also give an example of a few years back, Facebook at the time had started trying to detect risks of suicide or suicidal ideation among its users, and had implemented a pilot in the US, had worked with the National Lifeline. But when working at the time in a suicide prevention center, we tried to assess and ask them directly, is it possible to access and have a full access to the data that has been generated to try to assess whether your intervention and your tool is efficient or not, meeting its purpose? How many false positives are there? How many false negatives there are? They refused. As soon as we started asking for full transparency, we then encountered a negative. And so I think here the question is indeed that if there is not a global incentive and / strong invitation to be transparent, provide also the data to scientists, researchers, professionals, we will always encounter an endless loop of good intention versus criticism. And this is also what we see online on LinkedIn, like Giovanni said, many people saying we're changing lives, we're doing all the things for the better. But what we realize is that sometimes AI is also used as a tool to maybe compensate for systemic problems, such as the lack of mental health professionals. And I think COVID has also shown the strain under which we are, meaning that there are not enough sometimes mental health professionals to meet all the needs, from psychiatry wards to psychologists, to also well-being professionals. And so I think it's something we need to be also mindful of, the fact that sometimes AI has been envisioned as a way of replacing or at least subbing, and it's more complex than that. And I think we should not lose from sight the existing needs that also need to be met within mental health organizations, institutions. And I think, yeah, they need to be both developed, because they can indeed bring a lot of progress for our different fields, but it needs to be done at the same time while meeting the critical, urgent needs that we have.
If I can just bounce back to Giovanni, because you've been late, I'm going to just say thanks for being with us. But I think that
bye everyone. Sorry for leaving early, but it was a pleasure to meet you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. I think that when Giovanni mentioned that indeed in using AI as a mental health expert in order to be able to better treat patients when using AI, it is indeed the concern needs to be that it is not about using AI so that a medical expert can treat more patients, but it's about treating patients better. And I think that at the end of the day, the objective for all of us. I saw also some critical questions in the chat on that there is already indeed a lot of money being used for new and innovative projects in AI the past few years, specifically on European level. But that, of course, the delivery and the outcome of those results, it takes, of course, time before they can go to market. And it's precisely, and then this way I wanted to answer that particular question in the chat, because the clinical validation in medical context takes time. That's also research results in on AI and health, and specifically in mental health. It takes time before it actually can be used in a medical context. So I'm sure that we all agree that the upcoming years, as a result of the investments being made the past few years, I think that there are many, let's say, new solutions looming on the horizon to actually being implemented also in the case of mental health. Looking at the clock, I'm going to see if we maybe can actually have our final, let's say, question for all of our panelists coming up, and for that I also wanted to use a short video and then have a final reaction of all of you on that specific video or screenshot. It's actually the fact that we actually used ChatGPT to actually list 5 new potential mental illnesses that people may develop in the future that are related to AI use or the use or effects of AI. So I don't know if it takes some time to have a look at them, but these are, let's say, new potential mental illnesses. If one of you can maybe already first react to that. I see algorithm anxiety disorder. Is that something we indeed can actually debate and actually use as a starting point for a new solution? I don't know.
I think I can already say that to reuse the example of suicide prevention that is a bit connected to what I see here, for the new disorders, is the clinical tools that are sometimes used to, for instance, to be implemented within algorithms to, for instance, detect a risk of suicide in the text that someone is writing. These clinical tools that are coming from the clinical practice are sometimes lacking also evidence or lacking replication. And so we sometimes even develop algorithms to systems that are not always backed by the proper tools because themselves needed even more backing. So when I see new disorders, I'm also thinking of maybe a more conservative view on we should already improve the clinical evidence that we have for the tools that we need to actually implement in systems for mental health, from support to detection of risk to prediction. I think, yeah, the creation of new disorders is something that in psychology and psychiatry is, of course, needed because things evolve, but also we need to also have more strong evidence on things that we are currently exploring and using everywhere. And a final example of that is it has been proven, notably by someone named Luke Stark, that the definition of emotions and the way they're used in algorithms or different systems is a bit outdated, and the theories behind them are also outdated. The 5 emotions that you can even see in animes have been somewhat debunked. We have more emotions, more complex emotions. So I would just have a word of caution, but I'm always interested in trying to see what new syndromes and clusters can be formulated.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Carl. Maybe one or two closing sentences for the rest of my panel before that we actually can close down. Just to end up with a positive note, I'm asking first, Hanna-Lea, what do you think that the future will hold and where you're looking forward to the most?
Well, I encourage you all go out, meet people, invest in real connections and real human connections. It's key to promote our healthy state and healthy mental state, actually. So get a dog, meet friends, go offline as often as you can and create healthy habits around really differentiating what is actually good for me and what isn't. And by getting aware of these like really fine nuances and noticing that certain things don't serve me well and then get rid of them. So really being mindful of the usage of online tools, social media, anything digital here. Of course, in certain ways, they support us, they help us, they will make us thrive in other ways, but really on the personal and mental health level, see if you can seek it outside of the digital world. Yep. That's my closing statement. And yeah, thank you for having me. It was great to talk to you.
From your side, maybe looking at social behavior and how AI maybe can contribute to indeed a better understanding and a better social interaction. Some motivating words.
Who
Elias, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so while I'm still concerned about the current effect of AI on social systems, I do hope that as any new technology provides, which causes some kind of impact, it's just a transitory period, and at some point we will learn how to live with such technology, and that's a bit my objective in my research, to understand how to create social systems in which social technical systems in which both AI and humans can live together in a positive manner, in which humans can actually use AI to improve their daily lives instead of hindering it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And Nathalie, from your side.
Yeah, I think what is the main takeaway also from this discussion it was useful for me as well is really a reappreciation of the human in the mental health field, and especially human expertise. And I think what Carlos said was very valuable, how we need to make sure that AI actually fulfills a need instead of fulfilling a question that nobody even answered. So I think that's really where the future lies, how AI can be a good tandem partner instead of being a good solution to the mental health issues that we're all facing as a society.
Thank you. That's spot on. It's 11 o'clock, and I would really like to thank you, all the panelists, for joining us today, and thank to all the listeners and also the ones that actually put some questions into the panel. I would also make sure to check out the playlist of the past Claire AQuA sessions. You can find them on the Claire YouTube channel, and you can let us know if your organization or institution is also interested in help us to organize maybe future AQuA sessions on other topics, application domains, discussions on AI for the common good. I would like to thank you again. See you in the next Claire AI All Question Answer panel. Bye-bye.